Okay, let us start by reciting Surah Al-Fatiha. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, wa man tabi'ahu bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Very good evening to some of you, very good morning to some of you. Because those who are in Malaysia, Indonesia, it is afternoon. It needs to evening, if I said that, and those in maybe in Nigeria is early morning, 9 o'clock. Sanjar, there is approximately
afternoon, 13:24 p.m.
And it is like only 2 hours or 3 hours difference, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, today we are going to discuss a very important Muslim scholar as far as tafsir is concerned. Even though Sayyid Nursi has contributed to other disciplines, even other Muslim scholars that we have discussed so far, but our focus, it is only on the methodology that was used by these scholars in the interpretation of the Quran. And even here today, we are going to look at, as we have done with other scholars, briefly at the beginning about who is Sayyid Nursi, his contribution, then the focus will be on his work on tafsir. Then at the end, we are going to discuss based on the, selected text that I have taken from his tafsir, the methodology of Sayyid Nursi rahimahullah. Maybe if I said that some of you are aware of Sayyid Nursi, so he belonged to the time of, if I can say, at the end of the Ottoman or the maybe the end of the Ottoman Caliphate, if we said that, and the beginning of the Ataturk regime. So that is how he was a person who was a part of all the revolution that did take place, and how he tried with many others like him to bring back the caliphate, but it was something impossible during that time. That's why if we look at the life of Sayyid Nursi, and I have shared with you the slides. Let me just, perhaps we can share the slides here in order to ease the understanding about Sayyid Nursi. So as I mentioned to you that this is, the Sayyid Nursi, yeah, it was at the end of the 18th century and up to the middle of the, if we say, or the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. So that is how Sayyid Nursi was, he was living during the time of Ottoman Caliphate, as well as the First World War and the Second World War. So that is, and later on, when you look at the contribution that he made to different disciplines during his lifetime. And when you look at, him, this is the picture that they show to Sayyid Nursi. I don't know whether, because at the older or age of Sayyid Nursi, perhaps there are not too much pictures about him, but maybe this is according to the students of Sayyid Nursi, because some of them, they lived after Sayyid Nursi, those who came into contact with him. And this is when you look at the name, and you can see that we just look at the very brief biography about Sayyid Nursi. And as I mentioned here, it was, the name is Bedi'u Zaman Sayyid Nursi. Why he is Bedi'u Zaman Sayyid Nursi? That was during that time, as it is narrated, that one of his students, he was very amazed by the talent or the knowledge or the personality of Bedi'u Zaman Sayyid Nursi. And then he called him with that name. Because of that, he called him Bedi'u Zaman, the wonder of the age, because of his personality and the way he was, or the way of thinking, if we can say, the way of providing knowledge or interpretation of many things and how to contribute to the Muslim community during the time. And when you look at the sources that are related to his day of birth and as well as death, they say that he was born in 1878. So it is like during that particular time, the Westerners, they were very much developed materially, and we had the industrial movement that did take place in the West. And that is the beginning of the age of analysis up to the 1960s. Then we have postmodernism. We can say that was modernism, then postmodernism. So it means that Said Nursi, he lived during that particular time, that secularization, colonization of many parts of the world, including the Muslim world, was taking place. And this is, as I mentioned, some of them, they say is between 1866. Some of them say that is born in 1860, I mean 77 or 1876, you know. But I don't know which one is the, we have these three kind of, dates there that are very different. And he died in March 23, 1960 in Urfa province in eastern Anatolia. And some of them, they said that they do not know where is the, the place that he was buried. He was buried without the knowledge of many people. And then you know that during the time he was considered as a threat to the system, that was a secular system during the time. That might be the reason that, Said Nursi grave is not known until today. And the place of birth, that is the village. Maybe that is the why he got the name Nursi, because of the village that he was born. That is in the, as I mentioned here in the writings, you can say that in the eastern Anatolia. And that is how he, at the early stage or early of his life, he attended the madrasa school in the village. And of course, bearing in mind that the Ottoman Caliphate was following the Hanafi school of thought, but here it means, like, even though Said Nursi, it is not made very clear that Said Nursi was, focusing only on the Hanafi school of thought. But when you look at the writings, he was, preferring the four schools of thought, like the other, if we say, contemporary or modern Muslim scholars of that time. So it means that they were trying to find justification for what was happening by referring to other schools of thought. But we can say that his inclination was more towards the Hanafi school of thought. And I've seen that many of these, the followers of Said Nursi, they do not emphasize on the Hanafi school of thought. So as if, they follow a different, but we can say that the way they pray, the way they do other things, they do incline more to the Hanafi school of thought. But they do not emphasize on that. Maybe that could be that Said Nursi was not very particular to one school of thought. And we can say that he was not, by looking at other schools of thought, he did appreciate the contribution of other schools, and he made use of them. And especially when I look at these, the general principles of Sharia, that he was, trying to look at it from a different perspective in order to make them relevant to the time that he was living. And you can see here even the way he was arguing related to the classical, writings of Muslim jurists. So he was, of course, he did not, he did not discontinue, if I say, or disconnect himself from the classical contribution of the Muslim scholars, but he made use of them, and he wanted to make their contribution relevant to his time. So that is what, how the continuity of the scholarship as far as tafsir is concerned will be on. If we are going to disconnect ourselves from the past, perhaps let's say maybe this the new knowledge or body of knowledge that we developed is going to be without any base, without any foundation. And when you look at his personality, so as I mentioned, Said Nursi is coming from a very prominent, family of scholars that goes back to the 20th century. And as I mentioned previously, it was the end of the Ottoman Caliphate and the beginning of the Kemal Atatürk regime or rule or era, if we can say that. And that is how at the early stage, in his village, he managed to get his early education. and especially when he attended the madrasa, he was very talented from the early age. And you can see here that, as I mentioned, in 1891, when he was 15 years old, I mean, according to the mullah of that school that he attended, that is the Sheikh Muhammad Jalal, where he got for 3 months and he was able to get the ijazah. So it means that Sayyid Nursi was a different person from the others, very talented like any other previous Muslim scholars. Maybe that is the reason why he got the title Bediu Zaman. And you can see here later on how he managed to go to other places in order to pursue his studies. And that is there in the place where Sayyid Nursi was living, in here in Van, you see there was a library. So the municipal of that library, he liked Sayyid Nursi and he became very close with Sayyid Nursi. And that is how he tried to help Sayyid Nursi, to allow him to read the books in the library. So the books in the library, they were not just only books related to the Ottoman Caliphate, but they were books even related to the contemporary time that were belonging to the modern era, as well as the modern sciences of that time. And here we can say that that is how, Sayyid Nursi had in his mind to establish the madrasa from the very beginning. So he wanted to establish a balanced system of education in order to make the Muslims aware of the developments that were taking place in the world, not just only in the Ottoman Caliphate. And that is the reason why he traveled to other parts, and he came, if we said that he came to Istanbul, attending in the Islamic University, but still he wanted to get back to the establishment of Madrasat al-Zahra. So that is, his intention from the very beginning. Now, when you look at his personality, as it is mentioned by him, so there are two personalities of Sayyid Nursi, the old Sayyid and the new Sayyid. So when you look at the old Sayyid, of course, there is not too much difference between the old Sayyid Nursi and the new Sayyid Nursi. Just only the new Sayyid Nursi was the way he was treated by the regime during the time, and what was the position of Sayyid Nursi towards the regime in order to maintain a balance. But if you look at the old, Sayyid Nursi that is mentioned here, so the old Sayyid Nursi belonged more to the Ottoman Caliphate. At the beginning, he was trying to look at how to unite the Muslims, to strengthen the state or the Ottoman Caliphate during the time. And that is the very reason why he wanted to come out with this revival of madrasas, especially during the Ottoman Caliphate. And that is his very much concern was about how to make it relevant, and reconstruct this. When I talk to reconstruct, for example, when I look at the way how the Muslims were dealing with the reality during that time, Of course, he did not want to disconnect from the past. And this is, as I mentioned, in 1910, how he returned to Van, and that is the place. Of course, we have to bear in mind that Sayyid Nursi belonged to the Kurdish tribe, or Kurdish, if we say that race, by race is a Kurdish, but he did not portray that in his writings. Even he did not mention that he is, in order to separate or to create problems for the Muslims during that time, And we know that later on, how Kurdistan was divided later on into 3 parts, and they are facing problems until today. And he went to other, the famous, he became very famous when he went to Damascus, and he delivered the first famous sermon that is called the Damascus Sermon in the Umayyad Mosque. So that, in the Rasail Nur, this is a very important occasion for Sayyid Nursi to present his thoughts and his ideas, and that is how change, if we said that, or this brought a change to his personality. And you can say that in the First World War, how Sayyid Nursi, he was involved, and that is the time that he wrote, the tafsir during that particular time. And we are going to mention it later on, how he managed, let's say, to write the tafsir, Isharatul Ijaz, during that particular time without referring to any reference. Like today, we refer to many books in order to read, to recall back and to develop our ideas. But when you look at Sayyid Nursi, maybe he was thinking, and he was trying to, that was in a very short period of time, And this is how he, after in the First World War, that is perhaps you might be aware of it, that he became a captive in Russia. Then he was put in prison for 2 years. Then later on he was released, and in 1918 he came back to Istanbul. Of course, he escaped during that time. So this I wrote this in Arabic, what I just mentioned to you. So this is related to the old Said Nursi. Then here we have the new Said Nursi. So that is a kind of that Said Nursi, he went through this. When you look at the Ottoman Caliphate, there were many interior, if we say internal and external problems or conflicts or factors. And we can say that even Said Nursi, he went through this crisis, in order to balance his life and personality with the system that he was going or living. And that's why I said that this is very different compared to the old Said Nursi. And I just mentioned here what is mentioned here about his personality, what he says. We now get a better understanding when I look at all the transformation that was involved when the old Said shed his persona to become the new Said. So the new Said was taking leave from the intellectualization of religion to grasp the bedrock of the mysterium tremendum for him. That is when I look at the way how he tried to use the reasoning in order to respond to the challenges that were faced by the Muslims during that particular time. And we can say that in most of the time that he lived in seclusion, alone, that is how previously maybe he was involved with the community, but later on he faced problems and he was put in prison many times. He was, if we said that they marginalized him, they separated him from the students, from the community, because they look at him as a very, strange as well as dangerous for the regime of that time. But that was something, if we say, good for Said Nursi, because that is a time that he contributed even more when he was in this seclusion period. Then you can say these are how he explained, how he came into contact. Even some of the letters, if we say that, were written by him while he was in prison. And this is in Arabic that I mentioned here, the new Said Nursi, even here. You can see, perhaps you can read it, just only. Now, when you look at the work on tafsir, because that is our focus here. So the whole, when you look at the general work that even in other parts of his writings, Said Nursi interpreted the Quran, and some of them they have compiled or they have put this in one work, but we can say that in all his, his general work, that is Rasail Nur, is a compilation of many works that were written by Said Nursi, and the way he interpreted the verses of the Quran. Of course, he did not provide an interpretation like from A to Z, but he provided interpretation according to the verses that he used in order to respond to the problems that were faced by the Muslims during the time. Especially, we can say that he looked at secularism as the destructive ideology for the Muslim and as well as the way of thinking. So the Muslim personality and the way of thinking of the Muslims, that's why he wanted to provide a counterback. He wanted to provide a counterback for that. So that is very important when I look at this. Now, another important thing that we have to mention here, it is like, it is mentioned in some of the, like what Said Nursi said, we should mold the science. This is the brought from Europe and America, which in fact belongs to Islam, with the light of oneness, and view it from the point of view of the contemplation and signified meaning mentioned by the Quran, that is on behalf of its maker and master. So this is very clear, the aim of Said Nursi, how he wanted to respond to the developments that are taking place during his time. But as it is mentioned here, so Said Nursi did not consider the development that was taking place something that was new to him. So he said, this is what they have taken from us, from the Muslims, and they have further developed that. So it is not something that we have to be afraid of, but we have to stand and to respond to that. That's why, as we mentioned previously, he was very much concerned about relevantization, how to make it relevant. And here you can see the work on tafsir. But if you look at how this, the Rasail Nur is, according to what it has mentioned, it has been mentioned that it is a collection of 6,000 pages known as scientific exegesis of the Quran. So part, if we say that overall, if we say overall, because he has used, verses of the Quran related to other themes that he discussed in Rasail Nur. And here I just mentioned here the purpose, and it stated that the Quran includes scientific thoughts and encouraged all modern men to search for it. Scientific thoughts, it means that Quran is universal in nature, that responds or provide answers to everything that Muslims are facing during different times. So that is how we have to understand this. And he did not say that the message of Islam is strange to the development of that time, but he said that this is, relevant and is in conformity with the modern science. And I look at, here, as I have mentioned, the work of Rasail Nur, that it is mentioned, especially the first one, if we say that most of the verses that are mentioned in the first one, that is Muhakama, the reasonings, and the second one that is very focused on the tafsir, that is Isharat al-Ijaz, science of miraculousness, that is very direct commentary of the Quran. But of course, it is not a complete, if I said that, is not a complete, but Said Nursi here, he is interpreting just only, certain verses from the Quran, certain verses from the Quran. But of course, it is more detailed compared to the first one, that is Mahakamatu, that is reasoning. But it is written originally in Arabic by Said Nursi, and you can see here, and it was published in 1911. So when he wrote this, that is, I mentioned, the elementary of reality. So he has looked at it from a very thematic, approach. Then the element of rhetoric, that is the balagha, and the doctrine, that is aqaid. So we can say that this is covering 3 sections. But as I mentioned, the focus will be on his work on tafsir, and this is exactly the name, Isharat al-Ijaz fi Madan al-Ijaz. That is the science of inimitability in the context of brevity. That is how it is translated. Then you look at how he started this in 1914, when he wrote while he was in the taking part in the First World War. And that's why later on it was even by him, when he looked at it, then he saw that there were many things to be enhanced. So he re-edited the work after that, because during the time he wrote it very precisely, very briefly, if I can say, then later on it was added. And that was done within 1 year. You can see that that shows how brilliant, Said Nursi was. He managed to, and he memorized even when he referred to certain sayings of Prophet ﷺ, as well as the companions. So that shows the accuracy of his way of thinking, as well as the memorization, that he had very strong memory. And you can say that here is this mention, the length, you see here, the one he wrote in Arabic here. As I have mentioned here, when you look at لقد تم تأليف تفسير إشارة الإعجاز في السنة الأولى من الحرب العالمية الأولى على جبهة القتال بدون مصدر أو مرجع. So he has mentioned here that what I just mentioned to you, that he completed this tafsir during the first year of the First World War, and he did not refer to any source, or reference here. وقد اقتضت ظروف الحرب الشاقة وما يواكبها من حرمان أن يكتب هذا التفسير في غاية الإيجاز والاختصار لأسباب عديدة. So he said that because of the condition that he went through in the war, so he could not provide a detailed way of tafsir, but it was very precise, very concise writing. And I look at the length, I refer to this, publication that is published by Zosler Publications, Egypt, Nursi, Cairo, 6th edition, year 2011. So I refer to the Arabic version. I'll share with you later on the Arabic version of the tafsir of Sayyid Nursi. And here are the reasons why Sayyid Nursi wrote this precise, if I can say, the tafsir. So he wanted to provide or to come out with a particular work that will be very helpful for the people or the Muslim during the time. And we see that the main concern that was related to the words, because he's looking more on the meaning. So we look at the meaning of the words that of the Quran, that how he said Nursi wanted to make them relevant to his time. And at the same time, he stated the obstacles that he faced during the World War. So that was something that did not allow him to have a very precise, if you can say that, or better way of interpretation of the Quran. But even that I can say, and this is mentioned, I provided Arabic text as well. ولو لم موانع الحرب العالمية فقد كانت أنيته تتجه إلى أن يكون هذا جزء وقفا على توضيح إعجاز النظم. So it is like وقفا. You see that is a وقف, a word that he wanted to do من وجوع إعجاز القرآن وأن تكون الأجزاء الباقية كل واحدة منها وقفا على سائر أوجه الإعجاز. So he wanted to provide, but of course he could not provide a complete tafsir of the Quran. And the content here, as I mentioned, this is he focused on 2 verses only. Even the second verse, I said that is not completed because you look at Surah Al-Fatiha, that is complete. Now when you look at here's the introduction that consists of 5 pages. The 6th edition, that is the first edition. Then the 6th edition, 4 pages. Then this is the introduction of Sayyid Nursi, because this is done by those who edited the work of Sayyid Nursi. Then introduction of the first edition that consists of 5 pages. Then we have the tafsir that has the first chapter of the Quran, that is Fatiha, and 33 verses from the second chapter of Al-Quran, that is Al-Baqarah. So this is all about, so his tafsir, it contains or consists of 218 pages. If you look at the content of the tafsir. Now let us look at the methodology of Sayyid Nursi with examples. So as I mentioned to you at the beginning, so Sayyid Nursi was very famous about this approach, that is Manawi tafsir, or meaning exegesis, that the contemporary that he looked at the meaning of the Quran. That is how the rhetoric is very much needed in this kind of tafsir. And the second methodology that, if we say his method is characterized because of these characteristics. And the second one, that is tafsir shuhudi, that is trans-empirical exegesis. It means that he wanted to interpret the Quranic realities according to the manifestations that were visible. We can say that he wanted, by looking at the nature, how this nature is represented by interpreting the Quran, So that is very important here. When I look at the way how Sayyid Nursi provided the interpretation of the meaning of the text of the Quran in order to reflect the empirical understanding of the reality that is, known to us, that we can see it. And here you can see that I gave further explanation when we refer to his tafsir, how this trans-empirical tafsir or exegesis is understood. And Nursi's main concern with tafsir shuhudi was to produce a kind of tafsir that addresses all the aspects of mankind, like hearts and souls. And we know that his way of dealing with this subject in Rasail Nur is very, focused and very particular. This is very, different from other tafsir of the time of Sayyid Nursi. Even today, we can say that, of course, we can say that Sayyid Nursi was he referred to the different, writings of Muslim scholars that were known to him by that time. But this is the work that he presented. And the second methodology that is tafsir bira'i, that is reason-based exegesis. We can say that the way he, presented the tafsir, it is he has made use of his own understanding as well. And what is the most important that we have to emphasize, it is the word order that is nazm in the work of Sayyid Nursi. So the way he is providing this, the meaning, the flow of the interpretation of the Quran, and the methods that he made use by referring to the classical, if we said the classical writings, maybe we can say Sayyid Nursi stands in between. Maybe we can say that he used the moderate approach, that is a collection or a combination of both the classical writings as well as the modern writings. We cannot say that Sayyid Nursi was 100% following the classical Muslim scholars of the tafsir. Neither we can say that he was following 100% the modern scholars, of the tafsir. So this is how we have to look at it. That is how later he wrote this work according to this, And we can say that what is very important here, because Sayyid Nursi was very much, in a very deep connection with the first Muslim society, and especially with the Prophet, the life of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahaba and the Tabi'un, and later on. That is how we can say that he accepted the validity, of course, and the authority of prophetic traditions. And here that we can see it in the writings, other than the tafsir itself. And here what I mentioned, Isharat al-Ijaz, that is the Quranic hermeneutics. Another way how he approached, because that is relies on the, as I mentioned here, in the deep understanding of the structure. When you look at the structure of the verses, how he wanted to interpret the meaning of the text, the Quranic text, then you have to look at the order. And now that is the word order, the composition, the way how it was compiled or written. And we have the rhetoric, that is ilmu balaga. Then the uslub, that is the style of the writing. So how these three are very important when we use the Quranic hermeneutics or the hermeneutical approach in order to interpret a text, a particular text. And this became very famous, if we can say that, in the contemporary time, but it was there during, even at the early stage. Even at the early stage that Muslim scholars made use of this, and it is like we have ta'wil and tafsir, But some of them, they don't see any difference between ta'wil and tafsir. So this I mentioned here, what is stated that he says, Sayyid Nursi, that the authors say we should consider what is spoken, not the speaker. But I say that eloquence requires considering all of these points. Who says it, to whom it is said, on what occasion is it said, on what authority is it said, for what purpose is it said? These are very important questions that were raised by Sayyid Nursi in order to be answered by this approach. This is a very important thing. So it's not just only you are concerned about one particular, who says it, and never mind, we just forget about the rest, but you have to follow this order in order to have or to provide a deeper interpretation. And here, that is how he provided this. When you look at the al-mutakalim, for example, this order. Who said so, for example? Al-mutakalim, the speaker, al-mukhatab, the person addressed, al-maqsad, the purpose. So here you look at it on that position. Al-maqam, the situation. So he has mentioned these words when you are going to refer to the example that I have shared with you. So that is the situation when the word is spoken. So we can see that these words have been mentioned in that interpretation, and even in other parts of these two verses that were interpreted by Sayyid Nursi. This is very important when I look at how Sayyid Nursi was maybe different from other Muslim scholars during the time. Maybe that is his approach that was very different from other scholars. Now, if you have any question about what we have discussed, you can do so before we go to the example that I have provided or shared with you. So if you have any question to be raised or any addition about his personality, please do so.
Yeah, bro. Yes, bro. Hello, bro.
Yes, brother Aziz, please.
Okay. I just knew that Said Nursi had two phases of life, like other big scholars like Al-Ghazali, like Shafi'i, Al-Qadim, mashallah. So, what I'm going to ask you is, Prof, how far was the difference between Nursi's two phases of life? Was that like Ash-Shafi'i, Qaul Qadim, Qaul Jadid, or completely different? Slightly, I saw that in the second phase of life, he deprived, he exiled from political matters.
Yeah, that is right. I mean, of course, I mean, if you read more about Said Nursi, is during the time, of course, I mean, we look at the end of the Ottoman Caliphate, you know. So many Muslim scholars, and Said Nursi was involved, and he was betrayed by the certain leaders of that time, you know, because they thought that, okay, we have to work together in order to bring back the caliphate. But the reality was different, you know. That's why Said Nursi, he became very upset about this, you know. And many changes did take place. So when you look at the old Said Nursi, that was very active, very, contributing a lot, because there was an aim to be achieved. And when you look at the new Said Nursi, of course, he was betrayed by those who were, leading the country of that time. And many other Muslim scholars, Turkish Muslim scholars, they left Turkey, you know, and some of them, they went to Egypt during the time. But Said Nursi, nevertheless, he did not leave the country, you know. He said that it's better, to stay here, but he did not go for like a revolution or to create any problem for the system, because he was looking at the far future. So that is the reason why he stepped, from the politics, that maybe he was very much enthusiastic before that, the old Said Nursi, than the new, because he did not want to create any problem. But it is very clear that Said Nursi, he went to Kemal Ataturk, you read, then he stood in front of him, you know, because he never thought that Kemal Ataturk was going to betray him and others, but that is what happened. So when he came forward to Kemal Ataturk, then he became a clear enemy of Kemal Ataturk and the regime. And for that reason, they consider him very, something that will create a threat, if we say, to the system. And they isolated him. So it's not that Said Nursi wanted to go out and live in exclusion and to deprive himself from the society. But it was the regime that he was living who did not want Said Nursi, because they consider him as a threat to the community and to the system. And you have to bear in mind that during the time, you see, they changed. Kemal Ataturk, he changed, even the Adhan was called in Turkish language. So that is something that was very, if we said that, destructive in nature. And that was very harmful, or harming, if we say, or hurting Said Nursi and people like him. But as I mentioned, still, Said Nursi did not, he could easily tell his students to stand, to fight, but he was very indifferent in that, you know, because as I mentioned, he was preparing the young generation to respond to that. And we can see that later on how they survived, you know, how the Muslims managed to survive because of many of them, we can say, the contribution of Said Nursi and other Muslim scholars during the time. So that is how we can say. We can maybe judge the Muslim scholars according to the time. And you see he followed the footsteps of different or previous Muslim scholars, that when the opposition was given to them, they rejected. And Said Nursi was not running after position. So he didn't want to get any political position, I mean, during the time, but he wanted to contribute, he and people like him. So that is how, I mean, Brother Aziz, that is, he himself has mentioned that the old Said Nursi and the young Said Nursi, because there is in the young, we can see the crisis of, I mean, that he went through. Something that if you say that you take something, you are very enthusiastic, then you have an aim to achieve, and suddenly everything is collapsing, so that you have to find another way how to respond to that. So that, I mean, we can say that maybe created a problem when you look at the relationship between Said Nursi and his students, but still the students of Said Nursi did not, I mean, stay away. They were, wherever he went, they were keeping in contact with him. I hope that is clear, Brother Aziz, because even you mentioned Imam Shafi, rahimullah, or Imam Hanbal, rahimullah, even Imam Abu Hanifa. So the great Imams, they did not accept any position that was given to them, Why? Because they knew that this is the problem that they will face, unless I mean, people that will listen to them. See, that is a problem.
Yes, thank you, bro.
You're welcome, brother. So anything else anyone would like to add or to comment on the live?
Yes, Professor. Yeah, the Said Nursi used the firstly the new methodology, we can say the Quranic hermeneutics here. Yes.
Yes.
The first implemented, and we know Nazm is about poetry, poem.
Yeah. Then the rhyme. You see the way the wording, the flow.
So he interpreted his ayahs hailing from the point of Nazm. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, because there were other books written about this, Brother Sanjay. I mean, it is, when you look at the Nazm al-Quran, we have books. I mean, we have other Muslim scholars who wrote about this, Even if you look, even maybe the term is not there, but if you look at even classical Muslim scholars of the Quran, they use this because this is dealing with the words of the Quran, the order. You said the order. How we are going to understand the meaning of the Quran. So like some of the contemporary, maybe if we said that, maybe we don't call them like representatives of the Muslim community, but the way maybe those liberal Muslim scholars, how they interpret the Quran, they do not look at the order because they want to take what they want, So you cannot just simply take what you want. You have to look at what is the meaning, how it is connected with what is in front, what is at the back of the verse, So you have to look at the whole in order to understand the meaning. And that is how you understand the verdict and the law that is extracted from the Quran. That's why I mean that these 4 points here are very important, Brother Sanjay.
Yeah, so when somebody interprets Quran, he or she cannot be selective.
Yeah, you cannot be. I mean, yeah, you can, but you can select what you need. But that should be, I mean, the meaning should not be changed, Brother Sanjay.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
Yeah, welcome. So what we can see today, maybe I need to justify something, then I have to refer not only to a particular tafsir of the Quran, but we have to read different types of tafsir, So that will be, I mean, better for us. Even we cannot just simply interpret any verse of the Quran without referring to, I mean, the Muslim scholars, how they interpreted this verse. So that is not accepted, regardless of the time that we live. But some people, they do that, they do not consider the contribution of Muslim scholars towards the interpretation of the Quran. So they take what they interpret as they like.
Here in the this slide on this slide.
Yes.
I can see the المتكلم, المخاطب, المقصد, المقام. So, you know, today some Islamic intellectuals, including the Abu Sulaiman, Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. He mentioned when he interpret the Quran, about the interpreting Quran, he mentioned about these stages, I think, these things in his books, the crisis in Muslim mind.
Muslim mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, these are indirectly.
This is the same thing. Yeah, he mentioned about the same things. I think the Nursi did in his tafsir, use it in his tafsir.
Yeah, I mean that is that is how we understand, you know, because we don't see too much difference, let's say, between what Said Nursi presented. Maybe the Said Nursi put this order, but others, they use this directly or indirectly, you know. But these are the very important, that we have to understand. So we want to know who said that, you know, like this is the word of Allah. We cannot just simply use or abuse it, you know. So that is very important. So when we are dealing with the Quranic text, so this is not like any other text. So that is what is mentioned here, like who is talking? The speaker. We said that who is the speaker here, you know? So the one who is addressing this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And who are the addressed? This is the revelation we said that is addressed to whom? So this is meant for us. So we have to understand, you know, and what is the purpose, you know, and the situation, of course, when it was revealed. That's why I said Nursi and others. So they were very much concerned about the causes of the revelation, asbab nuzul, you know. They were very much when it was revealed, the purpose why it was revealed, you know. And they related this to the people, how people deal with it, you know. So if we say that what is the purpose of a salah, for example, who is addressing the salah? You see, who is talking about the salah? So what is the purpose? Why should we offer prayers? You know, why we, should perform salah? So that is, and when. The timing, of course, it is given when and how. So these are very important. So this is how, we understand, but let us look at, in order to have a better understanding about this. So let us look at it. I provided very simple. You can refer to, but I managed to get the whole text as it is interpreted by Said Nursi. And this is just only this in Surah Al-Fatiha, verse number 5, as it is mentioned here. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Thee alone do we worship, and thine alone we seek, you know, Surah Fatiha. So if any one of you would like to read the Arabic text, or you want me to read this, so it's up to you, you know, if you'd like to contribute.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, please, yeah.
Yeah. Al-qawl fi ta'wili qawlihi ta'ala iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. You alone do we worship, and you alone aid we seek. Iyyaka na'budu wa fil kafi nuqtatani. Ihdahuma tadhammunul khitabi bisirril tifat lil awsaf al kamaliyah al mazkura. Iz zakaraha syai'an yuharriku az-zihna wa yu'idduhu wa yamla'uhu syauqan wa yahuzzuhu litawajjuh ilal mawsuf. Iyyaka ay ya man huwa mawsufun bi hadhihi sifat. You alone in the letter kaf are two matters. One of them, the discourse included with the concealment of paying attention to the perfect description mentioned above. When mentioning it something, it stirs the mind and fills it with longing and takes it to head to the prescribed So you alone, that is, oh, who is described with this characteristic? Yes, sir.
Okay, Barakallahu Fik, Brother Aziz, yeah.
Yes.
So now we would like to see what are the methods that are used here. So when you look at this, so what he's trying to say.
I think he Quranic hermeneutics. I think.
So he's dealing with what? He's very particular about the meaning, you know.
معنوي.
Al-Manawi, yeah. You see now he's focusing.
تفسير.
Yeah, he's focusing on. You see that Iyaka is focusing on kaf only here. You see now how he's looking at only Iyaka, let's say the kaf, the letter kaf. So he's very particular about letter kaf, and he's explaining, I mean, in details, what is behind this letter kaf, you know. Is it clear? So that is very deep, if we say meaning, I mean, interpretation of the Quran. So he does not just simply look at the verse as a whole, let's say, but he is giving us the meaning even of this letter. Why kaf is that? What is meant by kaf, you know? And this kaf, we said that Iyaka na'budu, kaf is related to whom? Kaf is related to whom? When I said that as sifa or mawsuf, now who is the mawsuf? Here is the one bihadi sifat, you know, that is said, man huwa mawsuf bihadi sifat. That the khitab goes to whom, you know. That's why I said that one of them, it is
Allah.
Yeah, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is it clear? And it said that we have explained previously the characteristics, you know. We have mentioned the perfect characteristic or descriptions of the makhtub, that is, or that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he said that, of course, when it is mentioned bit by bit or shay or something, that is how, let's say, shayan, إذ ذكرها شيئا يحرك الذهن ويعديه ويملأه شوقا ويحزه للتوجيه إلى الموصوف. So now when this is mentioned bit by bit, if we said that, so that will make us, I mean, change. You see, will change. So you have like when you're going to remind somebody about who is the creator, for example, how is the creator, why is the creator, why you are supposed to worship the creator, you know. So that will make somebody to prepare himself, you know, to change, because when that person will reach that level, then he's having a kind of waiting. He's waiting to see what is happening, you know, how this is happening. So he's having a kind of, I mean, love in order to see the one that is described. When I look at the characteristics here that are related to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so we are, I mean, waiting to see, I mean, to meet the creator. So that is what, I mean, Said Nursi is saying that this is very different, you know. So when a person knows who is and how to do the one that is mentioned here with his perfect, I mean, characteristics, so that is why this is very specific, you know. This is very specific. So what we can say that this is very deep, I mean, interpretation or understanding of the Quran that is interpreted by Sayyid Nursi by providing the meaning of only one particular letter. So that will give us the whole meaning about Iyaka na'budu. Later on that he continues, you know. So anything else that you'd like to add here?
No problem. No, Professor.
Okay, others? Brother Nasir or Saputro?
Sorry, bro.
Yes, Brother Azir. Is okay, we proceed?
Yeah, Brother Nasir, please. Oh, I just want to ask, Prof. By the way, what kind of sifa characteristic the tafsir refers to? mausuf bihadis sifat.
That is, these are related because at the beginning he mentioned the sifat of Allah, that Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim at the beginning of the Surah Al-Fatiha. So then yeah, instead of repeating that again, he said that what we have mentioned previously, you know. So that is very clear. I mean, not only here, but in other places, Sayyid Nursi has mentioned that what he has discussed previously, he will not mention that, but he'll say that we have discussed previously, you know, we have mentioned previously. Is it clear, brothers?
Okay, brother.
Because kaf, this is, I mean, is related to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is it clear? Now, he mentioned the first one. So any one of you would like to read? So we had Brother Aziz. Any one of you would like to read? Anyone else would like to read?
As you know, I cannot read Arabic without.
Okay, Brother Nasir or Brother Saputro? Brother
Let me
Nasir.
read.
Okay, Brother Nasir.
والأخرى أن الخطاب يشير إلى وجوب ملاحظة المعاني في مذهب البلاغة ليكون المقروء كالمنزل وينجر طبعا وذوقا إلى الخطاب فإياك يتضمن الامتثال بأعبد ربك كأنك تراه.
Okay. You want to proceed or you want Brother Sanjay to read the English? Thank you, Brother Nasir. Brother Sanjay, would you like to read the English?
Okay, thank you. The other one, the discourse indicates the necessity of observing the meanings in the rhetorical school, that the reading is exactly like the revealed, hence it draws naturally and tastefully to the discourse. So you alone includes compliance with worship your Lord as you see him. This is the hadith of Jibril alayhi salam.
Okay, that is good. Now, as it was read here, let's say what kind of methodology we see here. So what he's trying to say, you know, what is Sayyid Nursi doing here?
Bil ma'thur.
Okay, you can, yeah, okay, yeah, bil mathur, because we have the saying.
Hadith.
And we have, I mean, he's using the of course, the same verse, but he's in order to support his argument, he referred to the hadith Jibreel alayhi salam. That is about Ihsan. That is about Ihsan. عبد ربك كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فهو يراك. So that is what he's saying here, that this Yake is in line with that, you know. Yake is, I mean, corresponding with this عبد ربك كأنك تراه. Okay, that is good. Other than that, so what is, I mean, here, maybe we can say that he's using the hermeneutics, you know, because في مذهب البلاغة ليكون المكروه كالمنزل. You see, كالمنزل. You see that whatever you read should be equal to what has been revealed. Because if you read and is not in line with what has been revealed, perhaps this will not have the same taste, you know, that is by nature. Because when you look at the Quran is not against the fitra of human being, you know. You see, that is the term that is used, tab'an wa dawkan, that is related to the nature, you see. Bitabi, when you say it's not like tab'an, we can say something that is of course, but this has another meaning. فَيُنَجِّرُ تِبْعًا وَذَوْقًا إِلَى الْخِطَابِ. So that is related to the nature, because that will, I mean, engage, will make us feel according to the nature. And as I mentioned, that the word of Allah does not contradict the human nature. So when we have seen, they have done many social experiments. You can see that when they approach even non-Muslims, they hear the Quran and they are amazed, because that is in line with human nature. So they'll feel that this is different from anything else that they have heard. So something that will give them a kind of pleasure, a kind of, happiness, rest. You see all this, so this is the word of Allah. So you can look, there are many, as I mentioned, many experiments that they do not only with the Muslim, but with the non-Muslims, to see how do they respond to the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why Sayyid Nursi has mentioned this when you go back to who said, and what is said. These are the elements that we can apply here, because it's very much concerned about, you cannot just simply, change the meaning of the revelation as you like it. So when you read it as it is, you cannot just simply read as you like. So he's very particular, and he's very much concerned about maintaining the Quran as it is, even though we are living at different time, but the Quranic text should be as it is, should be understood as it is, interpreted as it is. So we cannot just simply consider the Quran as any other book, and you have to bear in mind that during the time we have the Orientalists, that started long time, and up to that time, we can say that the modern Orientalists and contemporary Orientalists. So the way how they look at the Quran and the way how they responded, and this is the concern of Sayyid Nursi, this is the concern of Sayyid Nursi. Otherwise, you'll not see the beauty. If you change, you don't see the beauty, and another thing we can mention that even when the Adhan was read in the Turkish language, so it did not have any taste or any meaning, because it will not attract the masses. It is like if I call for Adhan in any other language other than Arabic language. So it will not attract the people as the Arabic language, because that is how it was read. And that is the Quran. If you read the Quran in another language, then it doesn't have the same taste as it is read in Arabic language. So that correspondence, or that is in line with what Sayyid Nursi says, that we have to read as it is exactly revealed. Also, that will not allow Muslims or others to change the Quranic text, So he's very much concerned about how to maintain the nature of the revelation as it was revealed to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Is it clear? This is very, and that has to do with. Yes, Brother Aziz.
Yes, I just crossed my mind, Prof. Some Mufassir like Ibnu Qayyim, like Rashid Ridho, they were influenced by their esteemed teacher. When it comes to Sayyid Nursi, as long as my understanding, he didn't go abroad from beyond Turkey. So who did influence him the most, particularly in his tafsir?
Yeah, then I'm saying that in his village, that he was able to. No, you mean the tafsir? Who taught him this tafsir? So it's not mentioned that anybody taught him his tafsir, But you have to bear in mind that when he was living in Van, that I mentioned, there was a big library, So Sayyid Nursi was reading both the classical writings and the contemporary writings, So that is how Sayyid Nursi was, preparing himself during the time. And we don't have any particular that Sayyid Nursi was reading tafsir so-and-so, and we don't have that, That is not mentioned there. And he himself has not mentioned that he referred to this particular tafsir. But when you look at the way how he presented his thoughts, they are not against, the schools of thought that were present during the time. Like we can say, Brother Aziz, even maybe you can say what is very clear, like maybe we have Muhammad Abdu or Rashid Rida, that they are a continuity, but maybe others, they don't mention that they went to so-and-so, they were affected by so-and-so, but they were reading the past, And out of that, they wanted to reflect. And maybe that is the reason why Said Nursi were very much concerned about relevantization, how to make it relevant, to his time. But we cannot say that there were not, Muslim scholars who interpreted the Quran, even in the Turkish language. We cannot say that there were none, but it is not mentioned there. So that's why Said Nursi, when he provided these steps here, it came out of while being in war, and he managed to provide these steps here, according to what is written there.
Prof, so did Said Nursi write his autobiography? Because I just want to know regarding his genealogy. When we see Ibn Asir, for example, I think Ibn Asir was the contemporary of Said Nursi. So how far? Maybe there is a communication between both or something else.
I don't know. Maybe I do not know, Brother Aziz, because those who wrote about Said Nursi were his students. You see, Said Nursi was just only talking to them. You see, and even outside the prison, they were taking notes, and he was giving the lectures. So that's why, and they were taken note by the students, and they were spreading to others. So that is how it is mentioned, Brother Aziz.
Yes, Prof. Yes. Okay.
I mean, if you look at the great Imams, or if we said the Mujaddid, what is the Mujaddid or the Imam? What is the task of Imam? Just to say, just to come out with a verdict. Then the students were those who developed and further contributed to. I mean, if the students of Said Nursi did not contribute to his thoughts, then nobody will know about Said Nursi. That is very clear, brothers. So those who made Said Nursi to be known to the world, they were the students, not Said Nursi. You see, if the Mujaddid will say something, then nobody will pay attention, nobody will follow, then the ideas will die just like that, But because of the students, you see, until today, there are many, if we say that schools follow the thoughts of Said Nursi. And they are not, as you mentioned, they are not referring, because Said Nursi did not mention that he referred to so-and-so, and it did not have that privilege. That could be another way.
Yes, clear, bro.
Okay, thank you. And you see how he continues here when he refers to, further, you see how he elaborates further, So like when you look at, for example, let me read here, وَتَكَلُّمَ الْغَيْرِ فِي نَعْبُدُ لِوُجُوهِ ثَلَاثَةٍ أي نعبد نحن معاشر أعداء وذرات هذا العالم الصغير وهو أنا بالشكر العرفي الذي هو إطاعة كل لما أمر به ونحن معاشر الموحدين نعبدك بإطاعة شريعتك ونحن معاشر الكائنات نعبد شريعتك الكبرى الفطرية ونسجد بالحيرة والمحبة تحت عرش عظمتك وقدرتك. So now when you look at how, Said Nursi is further elaborating this, that is related after he looked at the first part, that is Iyake. Now he's going to the second part of the verse, that is the verb itself, Nabudu. And he is elaborating this in details, he's mentioning what the purpose of this, as you mentioned, why it is addressed, That's why I said that, and the talking or conversing to the others in do we worship on three aspects. So he is looking at it in a very detailed manner, but telling us there are three aspects that we understand. The first one, we worship, we cohabiting members, organs, if we say, you can, maybe could be different here. I don't know how we look at it, and atoms of this small world, and it is me with a naturally or customary appreciation and thanks, which is obedience. What is the natural? That is, he's reflecting looking at the nature of the way we are created. So what is the nature that we are created? We have to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why he mentioned here, which is obedience to all that it is commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. that is the fitra. So he is focusing on what we are supposed to do, And we, the monotheists, so he is making a difference here by looking at human beings as a whole. By fitra, they have to respond to the commandments of Allah. And now we have very specific where he is addressing the monotheists, And maybe the monotheists, I don't know whether he meant here even the people or the Ahlul Kitab, but is not made very clear. But maybe could be very specific related to the Muslims. That's why I say we, the monotheists, worship you by obeying your Sharia, that is law. And we, the cohabiting organisms, I mean the creatures, everything that Allah created, worship your great innate law and prostrate with bewilderment and love under the throne of your greatness and power. So that is including not only the human beings, but is including all that is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he said that everything that is created by Allah should by fitra, worship Allah alone. And the one that deserves to be worshipped is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see, and they follow the law of Allah. You see, maybe we can say that the people, when they come here, they have given the choice. Let's say those who are born in a Muslim family, then they follow the law according to the fitra. Is it clear? Whereas those who are born in a non-Muslim family, then they do not follow the law according to the fitra. You see, because they don't have that ability, But the ability, they might get it later on when they become mature. So that's why it became obligatory for them to search for the reality, the truth as it is given to them by the fitra. And whereas when he is looking at other creatures that created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so they go in line with the fitra. Is it clear? They go in the line with the fitra. That's why when you look at the law that Allah created for everything, you see, everything is running according to that law. When you look at other creatures, the seen and the unseen, and we can say that perhaps people, they look at living and non-living, but we see that Allah says that the mountains are moving, We said that the mountains, they do not have any kind of, life, but Allah said that the mountains are moving, but we don't see them moving, So that is how we look at it. Allah gives life to anything, Anything that Allah say kun fayakun, then it will be. So we don't doubt, you see, that everything that is created by Allah is created with a purpose, and being like living like us, there is no problem, But when you look at the responsibility, is it clear? So that is how we understand him. Further, now he's discussing the verb that is related to, worship. We worship whom? Do we have anything to add here? Please, you may do so. So we can say that this is, the tafsir al-ma'nawi that is giving further explanation, elucidation, as well as we can say the words. He is dealing with the meaning, further meaning and explanation of the word. And we can say the hermeneutics, because he's dealing with the whom that we are going to deal with. So we can say here we are having the people, let's say, or the small organisms that are created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, related to the atoms, as well as the creatures that we can see. You see everything that different organisms that are created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, including the human beings, as well as, of course, the creator, that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he is mentioning that everything that is created by Allah, in order to appreciate what Allah has given to them, then they have to worship Allah. So it means the worship, it has different meaning, Na'budu here, it does mean just only the straight or the literal meaning of salah. Is it clear? That is how we show appreciation to Allah, and that we direct ourselves to Him only, and we obey Him. That is how we look at the meaning of ibadah, the purpose, Like say Nursi mentioned here, like, he said that it is me, like he represents the human beings, the purpose of the creation, to appreciate, to obey the commandment of Allah Subhanahu. That is the meaning as a whole of ibadah. Okay, Brother Sanjay.
Thank you, Professor. Another the method he is using here, I think, tafsir bil rai, because he interpreting here by his knowledge. I think he was aware of physics and biology. That was very he was the modern thoughts on science and physics and biology. That's why he used organs, atoms, and to
respond.
Additional meaning. In the Quran, there are many mentioned about everything has a consciousness and life, and everything was worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah, that is great, Brother Sandra. That is exactly because he was responding to the scientific development during the time, and that kind of knowledge he got it while at the age of 15, as I mentioned that, because at the early age he memorized the Quran. So now he read if we said that the Hadith and the Quran, and later on he came into contact with the books related to science, secularism. So that's why when he looked at the scientific development, so he was saying that Islam is not contradictory to science, but we have to, because science, it is what the Muslim scholars contributed previously. So what we are supposed to do, he said, according to his time, we have to make, to make relevant. You see that the way we interpret, the Quran. So we interpret the Quran to make it relevant to our time. So that is what he was saying. Then he was not just creating a separation between Quran and science, So he did not create that separation or Islam and the Western development, if we said that. So this is good. So that is related to, we can say, as you mentioned, to the biology. But of course, that was a time, We can say that was a time, but we cannot say that Muslims are not aware of it previously. But in line with the time, that science, during that time, it was developed in the West, and Darwin's theory was there, secularism was there, communism was there, socialism was there, capitalism. So all these isms were there, You see that's why he was aware of these ideologies, and especially because all these ideologies, they were referring to science. When you look at the man-made ideologies, they were referring to science, and science was providing for them answers to all the doubts that they had. You see, when you were dealing with the empirical world, if it is real, accepted by Islam, we don't have any problem, So we look at the aims, as we mentioned previously, the results. So if we use it properly, then it is by nature, and if it is in line with the nature, then it is Islamic in nature. That is how we have to look at it, and it is presented by Sayyid Nursi here, And you see here that what he mentioned here, the Nazm. So would like to read, and one of you would like to read.
Yes, Prof.
Okay, Brother Aziz.
Wajhun nuzum anna na'budu bayanun wa tafsirun li alhamdu wa natijatun wa lazimun li maliki yaumiddin wa'lam anna taqdima iyyaka lil ikhlas alladhi huwa ruhul ibadah wa anna fi khitabil kaf ramzan ila illatil ibadah li'anna man ittasafa bitilkal awsaf ad-da'iyah ilal khitab istahaqqa al-ibadah. The coherent aspect is that do we worship an elucidation and interpretation of the praise and the result and necessary for the Lord of the day of judgment. And now that the bringing forward of you alone for the sincerely That is the spirit of worship. And that in the discourse of Al-Kahf is symbol of the course of worship. Because whoever is described with this description, calling for discourse, deserve the worship. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah, thank you, brother Aziz. Yeah. So, who would like to contribute? What do you see here? What he's trying to say, you know? What Said Nursi is saying here.
This is related to the explanation.
معنوي تفسير.
Yeah, okay. Manawi tafsir, yeah. I mean, we can see that all the meaning he has used here, the style, we can say, nadm fil Quran, when you look at why he's talking about the order. You see, why do we have iyaka, then we have na'budu? Is it clear? So why iyaka is before na'budu? And why na'budu is what? When he said that it is this explanation or elucidation of or tafsir of alhamd, alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. You see, that is, we worship Allah in order to show, to appreciate, you know, when you say alhamdulillah. Is it clear? So that is very unique, you know. I can say that his interpretation is very unique. And of course, is that the result that will be obligatory for whom? I mean, this hamd is for whom? And this worship is for whom? Maliki yawmiddin. So that is referred to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is necessary because we are thankful to people, but the way we are thanking Allah is beyond the way we thank the people, you know, because what Allah has given to us, no one else can give to us. So that's why he said that this kind of ibadah, it is very special for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why this al-ikhlas, you know, when you look at that, ikhlas is ruh, is the spirit of ibadah as a whole. I mean, that will make, people to separate or if we say elevate themselves. You see, elevate themselves to higher position. The moment that we understand the purpose of our creation and the purpose of ibadah, why we have to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the way we do it is not like, al-Kahf, as he mentioned here, it is related to, as Sayyid Nursi said, the speaker, you know. And who is the speaker? He is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The focus of the discourse that is related here, iyaka, Kahf, it is directed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is very unique, I can say, the way he presented this tafsir. And of course, maybe it is relevant to our time, but we can say that was the fall of the Ottoman Caliphate, and people were attacked from other Muslims, especially from different directions, from all these man-made ideologies. And Sayyid Nursi was calling for this kind of, discourse, coming out of this kind of tafsir in order to remind the Muslims, you know, to make sure that the Muslims do not go astray. So that discourse we need it today as well. So that is very important. You see here how important, if we say that the scope of and the power of the attraction. So we have to see the power of the interpretation of Sayyid Nursi here. It is very important, you know. And he's making very clear, he's differentiating between the creator and anyone else that is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why I say, لِيَنَ مَنِ اتَّصَفَ بِتِلْكَ الْأَوْصَافِ الدَّاعِيَةِ إِلَى الْخِطَابِ إِسْتَحَقَ الْعِبَادَةِ. Because the one who is calling like iyaka, who is telling us iyaka na'budu? See, this card belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he said that the one that is alhamd, maliki yawmiddin, rabbul alamin. So these are the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he said the one that is characterized by this, characteristics, he's the one who deserves, you see, istahaq al-ibadah. No one else, you know. We see people that worship the position. Today they worship themselves. They worship beauty. Some they worship the car. Maybe we have, non-Muslim, they are getting married, you see, because that is a kind of, devotion. Somebody is marrying a dog, a cat, a tree, you see, a car, a house, naudhubillah, themselves, So that is a problem. So we need this kind of approach today in order to remind the Muslims and the non-Muslims that the one that we have to be in love is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no one else, Then other things you can easily solve the problem that you are facing. Because if you have a clear picture about the Creator and you know the purpose of your creation, then easily you can solve other problems. So this is how we understand, what he's saying, that he's making a difference between the Creator and the creatures. So what he said, that the one who deserves is the one who is describing himself in this verse, So we have to understand, this is very powerful, I can say that this discourse that is used by Sayyid Nursi is very powerful, in nature. So we have to understand this, and you can see the way that he used, the meaning that he gave us, and that is based on what he was aware of, He was concerned about the problems that people were facing, the Muslims were facing. So I think that is why he reminded people about that. If you have anything to say, please do so, Yes, brother Nasir.
All right, Alaikum
Alaikum
salam. This says, yes, the purpose of worshiping Allah is to show more praise to Him, because he link it with Alhamdu, that Iyaka na'budu, because of the Hamd. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. That is showing gratitude to Allah and praising Allah. That is why we are worshiping Allah. That's what I understand with this, what he's trying to point out.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. Thank you, brother Nasir. Okay, let us look at, we can see how he is combining both these together. This is a very important thing that we have to understand, the way how Sayyid Nursi is linking this, So who would like to read this? Brother Nasir, would you like to read?
Yes, inshallah.
Yeah, please.
وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ هذه إياك نعبد باعتبار الجماعات الثلاث، أي نحن أعضاء ومعاشر الموحدين ومعاشر الكائنات نطلب منك التوفيق والإعانة على كل حاجات والمقاصد التي أهمها عبادتك.
And you see now, thank you, brother. Brother Nasir, thank you. Maybe we can let them look at the translation. Maybe no need. Now, what is the most important thing that you mentioned here? So he is relating this the al-isti'ana wal-ibada, So he is telling us that isti'ana is not different from ibadah, because when you are worshiping Allah, you are asking His help, And he is presenting this like these three groups of the creation. Is it clear? Then all these three are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give them what, to provide for them this success and what they need. You see, an assistant. That's why he's linking this, the al-isti'ana here, التوفيق والإعانة على كل الحاجات والمقاصد اللي أهمها عبادتك. You see now? So all these are related to, because of this ibadah, then we ask for assistance, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To all the needs, when we worship Allah, we ask Him for what? Of course, the purpose of creation is ibadah, but can we perform ibadah if Allah does not ease everything for us, So ibadah, it means that everything we do is not just only when we offer the salah, but everything we do. So you can see here, he's linking these two together. So we cannot separate this. Even though al-ibadah is before al-i'ana, because when we worship Allah, we say Allahu Akbar, for example, in the salah, we ask Allah to help us. That is how we appreciate, you know. It is like a kind of, maybe we can say, what we get in return. So when we appreciate what Allah has given to us, then Allah will give us more, will make things for us easy, you know. And the aims that we are created for are going to be achieved. Is it clear? I mean, that is how we can understand the whole. I mean, when I look at the way he interpreted this, because they are correlated with one another. They are very, if we said that they are complementing each other, you see. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. So of course, I mean, al-isti'ana and al-ibadah, that is very specific to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can ask anyone to assist you, but his assistance will not be perfect that as the assistance of Allah. Is it clear? So I think maybe we can go further to the other one. You can see here, maybe this is how further he elaborates. You see now, that is continuity. Okay, Brother Nasi, would you like to read?
Yes, sir. كرر إياك لتزيد لذة الخطاب والحضور ولأن مقام العيان أعلى وأجل من مقام البرهان ولأن الحضور أدعى إلى الصدق وبأن لا يكذب ولا والاستقلال كل من المقصودين
من المقصدين يا أخي ناس، لأنه هو قال مقصد ما هي مقصد.
نعم
مقصدين، that is مقصد الأول والثاني مقصدين.
نعم مقصدين.
Okay, barakallah fik, brother Nasir. So others would like to contribute. Maybe you can see here how he mentioned, like maybe we can make use of this hermeneutics here, you know. As I mentioned previously, is talking about the maqam, you know, the place, and he's making a difference. You see now we can say a comparison between al-iyan, maqam al-iyan, wa maqam. You see this the khabar, for example, al-burhan, that is the evidence. Even he's talking about the sidq. Lian al-hudur, for example, your presence, it is more important than when you look at, nobody can lie, you know, when you are present, you look at the reality, then the possibility of avoiding, I mean, falsehood will be very high. And you cannot be cheated when you see it there, you know. So it is very, we can say that like, it is because the scientists, they focus on this, you know. The scientists, they want to go to the field. And during the time they were not happy with somebody if he's going to discuss a particular issue, if he did not go out to the field. That's why this is very important. And we can say that this was mentioned a long time ago, even when you look at Biruni, because Biruni, the thing that made him to travel, I mean, to go from Ghazna to go to India, that is the very purpose, you know. When he said, "Laysa al-khabaru kal-iyan," so he said that the hearsay is not like the eyewitness. So this is very important. Why Said Nursi says that? Why, I mean, this tikrar, when you say karara, this iyaka, why iyaka is mentioned twice? Is that maybe Allah can say, iyaka na'budu wa nasta'in. But Allah says, iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. And Sayyid Nursi says what? لِتَزْدِيد لَذَّةِ الْخِطَابِ وَالْحُضُورِ. So that will make you feel the pleasure, to increase the pleasure of this, the discourse itself. And when you say the presence, you know, it means like will make you feel awakened. When you say al-hudur, to be present, you know, to make yourself awaken and to be, if we say, conscious about what is happening. We can say that, I mean, when you look at al-ayn wal-basir, for example, al-ayn is what we see, but al-basir, we go into a deep understanding of the reality. We can look at something, but we look at it beyond the way we others see it. So that is how even hudur here, when you look at the one that is, I mean, al-khitab, the one that is providing the speech itself, you know, the discourse itself that is given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that will make us to feel the pleasure as well as to be awakened, you know, of what is happening. So this is what I mean, Said Nursi is saying here, and that is further, I mean, that presents his approach that we can say it combines all, we can say Manawi as well as the hermeneutics here that he mentioned here. Why he's, I mean, saying that, I mean, this if we look at here the station or the position, we can say of the eyewitness is higher and greater than the station of the Burhan. Why he's saying that, you know? Maybe somebody will give you the evidence, for example, but are you going to rely on him unless you go do a field study by yourself? Will you be happy if somebody else will provide? It is like when you do a research today, you are referring to a book, for example, then maybe that author, he has cited from another book. Now, in order to make it clear, your approach, then it will be better, and this will maybe might disturb you because you do not know whether the one that cited from the first author, he cited him correctly or not. Then this will make you eager because you get the pleasure, the full pleasure now when you find out that this is the real, you know, when you go to the source, the origin itself. I mean, that is the truth, you know. It is like when you see it for yourself, the happiness that you have and the pleasure that you get is more compared to the one that is given to you. Because still you doubt in something, you know, still you doubt, you know. Is it clear? So it's not when you, I mean, this is related to the reality even today, you know, that we are dealing with. And that will make it the things to be more trustworthy. The sources will be reliable. You can be a reliable source when you are very particular about the information that is given to you. You see, that's why I said that this, only then you can see that the istiqlal kulli min al-maqsadain. What he mentioned that the two purposes here, when I look at al-ayan, ala wa jalu min maqam wal hudur, you see that the nafs, because that is al-khitab is interpreted by al-maqam al-ayan. You see how you feel, you know, how you see it, how you go into a deep understanding. And al-hudur here, the way you present yourself. Because when you go there yourself, then you see the truth for yourself. It's not like somebody will interpret to you. So I hope you understand. Is it clear? I mean, that is how we have to go into a detailed elaboration about, I mean, the way how this Muslim Mufassirun, let's say, they interpret the Quran according to our time. So I want you to do the same thing when you are going to, maybe I'll provide by this week, I'll share with you the template. So I'd like you to, whether you want me to provide the text, then you do the discussion, you elaborate. This is how you have to elaborate. Is it clear? So maybe we might not be concerned about the scholar who provided the text, but I would like you to understand, you know, when you read the text in Arabic, then if you are able to understand, to identify the method that is mentioned by the scholar, and you further elaborate, interpret, make it relevant, that is what is required, you know. So you build on it. Yes, Brother Nasir.
Yes, thank you, sir. We can do it. We like it like that, sir. We'll learn more, sir. Thank you, sir.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. And you see further how he explains. You see now he's talking about this hermeneutics further. You know, now he's giving us what he's making here. You see what is? Let me just read this. Or brother, would you like? Brother Aziz, would you like to read?
Yes, bro.
Okay, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wa'lam anna nuzum nasta'in ma'a na'bud ka nuzumil ujrah ma'al khidmah. Li'anna al-ibadah haqqullahi 'ala al-'abd wal i'anah yahsanuhu ta'ala li 'abdihi. Wa fi hasri iyyaka isyaratun ila anna bihadhihi nisbah asy-syarifah allati hiya al-ibadah wal khidmah lahu ta'ala يترفع العبد عن التذلل للأسباب والوسائل بل تصير الوسائل خادمة له وهو لا يعرف إلا واحدا ويتجلى حكم دائرة الاعتقاد.
No, what? Okay. So what he is doing here, I mean, perhaps you have read the translated version of. So maybe if you'd like to say anything, Brother Aziz or others, what he is doing here. What is Sayyid Nursi doing here?
Personification, bro. Yeah. Analogy.
Yeah, okay, that is good, yeah. He's using the analogy, his analogy of the interpretation is doing what is. Now he is comparing this what? He's using the energy, illustrating this with an example. You see, كَالنَّذْمِ الْأُجْرَةِ مَا الْخِدْمَةِ. Because you are doing something, then you want to get something in return. Is it clear? The fare that you do with service, you know, when you, for example, when you serve somebody, you want to get something in return, you know. Is it clear? So the same thing goes here. He said that وَعِلَمْ أَنَّ نَظْمُ نَسْتَعِينُ مَا نَعْبُدُ. The coherence between nasta'in with this na'budu is like this, you know, like al-ujratu mal-khidma. So he's putting these two words and doing a comparison in order to ease the interpretation and to make us, I mean, to understand this better, to make us understand this better. Huh? And he's talking about this, the slave, you know, because some of them, they translate the word abd as a servant. That's why I put here the slave and the servant, you know, because abd, when we said that Allah doesn't need our service, whereas we need the service of one another. But he said that when you do something, even when you look at why, when we believe in Allah, you know, so Allah said that when you believe in me, then you'll get something in return. Is it clear? So there is a kind of fare that we get, you know, al-ujra. We get an ajr for everything that we do. So everything that is good, we get an ajr from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, even those who do bad, they get the punishment to take place, you know. So al-jaza, and here we have iqab. So these are two things that people will get according to the direction that they take. So those who please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will get the jaza. And those who displease him, then they will get the iqab from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is very important. So we can have that kind of interpretation as well by examples. Now we have many examples today. We can provide concrete examples, even related to our time, you know, like we have atheists, we have liberal Muslims, we have those who, I mean, go against the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah created a man as a man, a woman as a woman, they go against that. So how we are going to respond to this, you know? So it's not the same. I mean, even when you look at the happiness. So are you going to feel when people worship something other than Allah, will they feel the real happiness? Will they get the real help and assistance? No, they will not get, you know, because they don't have this itminan. When you look at this al-qana'a, I mean, contemplation, they don't have that, you know, so they cannot achieve that level. So that is why he said that when a person will go in line with this, then he will get what he wants, because all this what Allah has created, like when he said here, I mean, when here we have this, when it talks about the khidmat ta'ala yataraqa'u, when all this is meant for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see, al-ibadah and the concept of everything that we do, serving others, we do for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what will happen? Then this yatarafa'u al-abdu an itadalu lil asbab wal wasa'id. So then he'll be, I mean, humiliation will be done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it will be beyond the causes and intermediates that are used by him in order to reach to do that service. So that would be different, you know. Is it clear? It will be different with what he mentioned here. You see, let me read this. So what he mentioned here, وَالْوِجْدَانُ كَمَا مَرَّ, so he has mentioned this. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَكُنْ خَادِمًا لَهُ تَعَالَى بِحَقٍ يَسِيرُ خَادِمًا للأسباب ومتذللا للوسائل، لكن يلزم على العبد وهو في دائرة الأسباب أن لا يمهل الأسباب بالمرة لئلا يكون متمردا في مقابلة النظام المودع بحكمته ومشيئته تعالى لأن التوكل في تلك الدائرة إطالة كما مر. So now he is giving us an example. So when a person is relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will get everything. But when he relies on what is related to the causes and intermediates, so he will humiliate himself to this. Then he will not see the real, understanding of ibadah as well as isti'ana. That's why he said that he will not understand because he will become a slave of this, al-asbab wal wasa'id. And it will go against what Allah has created, the hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as well as the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because that person will rebel against the nature of the creation that Allah created him. So now you see how beautiful it is, like in order to understand, then we compare with other Muslim scholars who interpreted this particular ayah, then you can see there is a difference, you can see that there is a difference. We can see that the method that is used by Sayyid Nursi is different from the method that is used by Abu Ala Maududi or Tantawi. Even we can say that Jawhari that we discussed in the previous class, his is very scientific, and Sayyid Nursi is using that, he's using that to respond to science and making use of the scientific development, but of course it did not present, the way how Tantawi did present the tafsir, but this is, complementary, if we said that to the time that Sayyid Nursi was living. So that is a reminder. Maybe because the people, they became servants to their own deeds, You see the causes that the word, if we said that all these ideologies, people believe that science is everything, and we know that the science is the product of man. So that is the direction of people change during the time. So as I mentioned previously, this is very important. So we can have the same approach today to remind, particularly the Muslims, to come back to their senses. So they don't have to rely on the causes, you see, as well as if we say asbab, we don't have to rely on people. We have to believe that Allah created the others because through them we get the risk that Allah has written for us. But like Umar al-Khattab was saying that people, they cannot get the risk by sitting, they have to run after the risk. Even though we believe that the risk is written by Allah, but you have to run after the risk. So it means that we have to run after this asbab that Allah has created for us to get the risk, and could be a person we appreciate, but we don't have to believe that because of this person we are getting this, So that is a problem that we have today. Even some people go to that level. You'll be surprised that even knowledgeable people, they are saying that we are under the mercy of so-and-so. No, we are under the mercy of Allah, not under the mercy of people. So it's not because of their mercy, it's the mercy of Allah, And we can say nobody can decide whether it is good or bad without the permission of Allah. So when we have that clear picture, so that will ease our life as Muslims, at least, But if you believe that everything you get is from your boss, na'udhu billah, then your life will be in trouble, the meaning of life. So the end will be different, So please think about this, So if you have anything to say, I think this is the last, because the time is almost over. If you have anything to say, please do so.
To me, enough, bro.
Okay, so I would like you to, did you write your names here? Yeah, Brother Nasir, I provide for you the information, inshallah. I have this in the learning. So I got, because I used to have previously, but today I got this the tafsir that is better compared to the one that I used before. So in Arabic, tafsir of Sayyid Nursi in Arabic. And I found other books that are written by scholars related to the life of Sayyid Nursi.
Sasa,
Okay. So don't worry. I'll share with you and video as well. So this
Thank you,
video
sir.
I put on the YouTube as I did the previously, but I was not able to update this on the e-learning, you know. So I'll try then at the same time, I'll provide a template for you to do the work. Huh? So if you have anything, maybe let me just provide a template. And next class, if you have anything to ask or through WhatsApp, you can, I mean, ask further in order to understand it better how to do the work, you know. Okay, I think this will be sufficient for today. Can we stop here for today? Brother Saputro?
Yes.
Yes, we
Yeah, I was happy that some of you attended the forum that we just had yesterday. So I could see Brother Saputro there. Huh?
maybe the next session will be discuss.
Yes.
Maybe next session will be discuss the next material, I think.
Okay.
Professor.
Okay. 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 Can we stop here for today?
Yes, thank you, bro.
Okay, let us close by reciting Surah Al-Asr and Tasbih Kafara.
Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilaih.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.